can only imagine when that day comes.
Good morning, everyone. You know, for a little bit, I was afraid. I thought that the elders might have called off the service and didn't tell me. But we're certainly glad that you are here and happy and well and all those good things. We've had good reports from some of our sick, and we're grateful for that. Good to see Miss Jo Helen just gaining strength and getting a little better every time. That's good. We've prayed for that. Sister Simpson, Linda Simpson, said that she was just a whole lot better than she was after the procedure. I don't know exactly what they did for her heart, but she said it worked. And, of course, you're going to know that pretty quick. But I'm going to continue to pray for all those that have expressed an interest in having us pray for them. We're at Psalm 101. It is a beautiful, beautiful psalm. And we'll get into that in just a moment. Let's pray together as we begin. Father, we give thee thanks for this new day, this beautiful day. We're mindful of our compatriots in Mississippi and Louisiana and Alabama. And we know this storm system is going to the coast. And we pray that you would be with the people that are in the path of these killer storms. We pray that you give us the opportunity that it's there. In fact, it is there to be of service to those people where we can. Bless our study this morning, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. The psalmist makes a profession that he is going to live an upright life. And since he's the king, he's going to enforce a lot of those kinds of policies in his kingdom. And so I want to begin and just read. That's only 8 verses, and then we'll begin. He said, I will sing of loving kindness and justice. To you, O Lord, I will sing praises. I will give heed to the blameless way. When will you come to me? I will walk within my house in the integrity of my heart. I will set no worthless thing before my eyes. I hate the work of those who fall away. It shall not fasten its grip on me. A perverse heart shall depart from me. I will know no evil. Whoever secretly slanders his neighbor, him will I destroy. No one who has a haughty look and an arrogant heart will I endure. My eyes shall be upon the faithful of the land, that they may dwell with me. He who walks in a blameless way is the one who will minister to me. He who practices deceit shall not dwell within my house. He who speaks falsehood shall not maintain his position before me. Every morning I will destroy all of the wicked of the land, so as to cut off from the city of the Lord all those who do iniquities. This is an aspirational song. He's making adjustments in his mind and in his heart as to how he's going to be and the policy he's going to pursue. And, of course, in those days, if the king said it, that was pretty much the law. That's what it's going to be. And what would this country be like if we had leaders with those aspirations? That I'm going to do what's right. I'm not going to entertain corrupt things in my mind and in my heart. I'm going to pursue good things, and I'm going to see to it that those in my kingdom follow those policies as well. What would that, you just try to imagine what that would be. Of course, there's not going to be utopian salvation here on earth, is there? Because people are flawed. But it would be a refreshing thing to have a leadership that had this mindset. We talked about the first couple of verses last time, and having experienced God's covenant love and righteous judgments himself, he's determined, or he makes the determination that he's going to continue to grow in these traits and convey them to the people that he leads. And that's a noble goal to have. And these attributes he has come to know are fundamental to blameless, holy living. And two intentions grow out of his meditation: praising God with regularity and giving heed to how he is walking before the Lord, to be mindful. You remember what Jesus said, where two or three are gathered together, what? There am I in the midst of them, King James, way they say it. And we'll come to the psalm that where King David is saying, we go to the depths of the sea, you are there, the heights in the sky, you are there. In other words, he talks about the points of the compass. Everywhere we go, God is there. And he's ever aware, never has to sleep, but he's aware of what we think, what we say, what we do. And we want to try to keep that in mind. And so these attributes are fundamental to blameless and holy living. And so they deserve the kind of attention that he's committing now to give them. And a couple of intentions grow out of that meditation, as I said: praising God with regularity and to give heed to how he's conducting himself. Give heed to how he's thinking about, just to purposely concentrate on things that are noble and right and good. These ideals, he vows, are going to occupy his mind and regulate his life. And of course, if we do, as Paul said, think, when he enumerates good things, in the Thessalonian correspondence, it says, think on these things. That's going to displace things that are corrupt and vile and wicked, ignoble. And we're just going to, make the determination. I'm not going to dwell there mentally. I'm not going to dwell there emotionally. I'm going to think about these kinds of things. And as the psalmist has vowed that vow, that'd be a good one for any of us and all of us. The question arises in his prayer: when will you come to me? A scholar by the name of A.F. Kirkpatrick proposed that David, the king of Israel, wrote these words as he thought about bringing back the Ark of the Covenant to the city of Jerusalem. Well, I don't know, but that's a plausible thing. Regardless of his circumstances when he was writing the psalm, it's evident that the writer believes that his relationship with God and the city can only flourish with his making God's character his own character. Well, is that an eternal principle, or was that just then? That was eternal, wasn't it? It's still that way. If you want any society to flourish, well, then you need to get in sync with the one that created us all, and the one to whom we will give an account of our lives in that great day. And so we certainly need to pay attention to the way that we're walking and be volitional about that. I mean, to take the time, make the determination, check up on self, not in some sort of paranoid way, but there is a good way and a bad way, and I want to pursue the good one. It's easier to pursue the one that's wicked. The devil's always presenting things, that are bogus, lies like a rug. I've noticed this week, and I don't spend much time with it, but on the internet, you know what? They got a cure for everything. Diabetes, everything. Oh, man, they got a cure for all of it. And all you got to do is take this herbal concoction, and it can't hurt you because it's natural. Well, that right there is a big lie. There's a lot of stuff that is just natural that will hurt you. Anybody want to take a sip of hemlock tea? Remember Socrates? That'll kill you graveyard dead. And so you hear those things, these hucksters put out there. Don't go for that. Please don't go for that. There are herbal medications that are good, but you want somebody reputable that knows what they're talking about. And we owe it to ourselves and everybody else to ask the question: what qualifies this person to speak to this subject. And certainly that goes in religious matter. You can hear and will hear if you get out there and listen to what's out there among some of the TV preachers, for want of a better term. And there is some of the most outdoing stuff, and guys will claim God told them that. And God said, what? That his mind is revealed here. And if so, you have a fellow come along, or a lady, either one, adopting something that's absolutely contrary to what this book says, who's wrong? That book or them? Them. Because they're mere men. And so we need to ask those questions. And we don't determine policy, don't determine theology based on, well, I like somebody. Well, I like a lot of people that are just as wrong as they can be, and not because I'm so smart, but because I'm reading what the text says and they're saying something different. Well, when you depart from what the text of Scripture says, you've taken the wrong path. Well, regardless of the circumstances, he understands that in his own life, in his own rule, in his city that he loves, that he's got to have the right kind of character. And he knows that God will not come into his life, and he will not come into his city without being invited to come by a righteous living of its king and its people. You see, and all the time you hear people make assertions and seek to justify things that are contrary to the will of God, rather than just fess up and make a clean break with it and do what they know is right. If you listen to people talk, they'll excuse everything. They're just not any rules. If it feels good, do it. It's your thing, baby. Do what you want to do. That's the mindset. And it leads to disaster. It leads to, they popped a place last night, unlicensed place, and they said it had about 3 sexually oriented businesses, and they were selling liquor without a license. Probably had somebody in there selling fentanyl and crack and everything else, Well, they're doing what they want to do. And, without regard for the people whose lives they're destroying. They don't care. Why? Well, it makes pretty good money. Your life expectancy is not very long in that line of work. It used to be about, if you made 32, you were doing pretty good if you're out there hawking drugs out in the street. Well, he knows, this king knows, that we've got to clean it up if we want God to be among us. So how should godliness be defined? He reflects on that and realizes that the life of God's king is marked by covenant love, marked by justice, marked by the regular praise of God, and the pursuit of a blameless walk. That's the goal. We're not going to get there in this life, but that ought to be the goal that we look to and try to ever self-correct. It's a whole lot better to self-correct than, pursue something to the point that somebody else has to intervene, isn't it? Because people, no matter how much somebody loves you, if they try to intervene, people get defensive. They swell up and get defensive. And so it'd be better to have the attitude of this ruler, which I would think is David. But the life that he craves is not just some abstraction. It's genuine. It's a reachable life, and he's going to seek it eagerly. The next portion, the division that he introduces, is in verses 2b through verse 5. I will walk within my house in the integrity of my heart. I will set no worthless thing before my eyes. I hate the work of those who fall away. It shall not fasten its grip on me. A perverse heart shall depart from me. I will know no evil. Whoever secretly slanders his neighbor, him I will destroy. No one who has a haughty look and an arrogant heart will I endure. In a monarchy, like the ancient monarchies, the king is the law. And in this kingdom, where they're in covenant with the Lord, he's going to use the law of God and apply that. But so those are not idle threats, and he is not only the chief administrative officer, but he's the chief lawman. And the claims of godly living, latter part of verse 2, are empty unless they're demonstrated in the heart and the family circle, are they not? I mean, you got to do it, right? And if you do it, it's going to be reflected in you, and in the man's case, it's going to be reflected in the family that he leads. And at this point, the more general resolves of the psalmist's prayer are narrowed into the specifics of godliness. I will walk within my house in the integrity of my heart. Putting his desire for integrity in the form of an objective that he set, he says, I'm going to walk in it. Not going to just talk about it, not going to just assert it. I'm going to do it. And the people around me in my administration, they're going to participate. They're going to own that and embrace that, or they're not going to be there. And so he plans the implementation and the action and the continuation of it. He's determined to go beyond talk to a deeply motivated lifestyle. His references to my house, my heart, include his personal life, both in his home and in his court. And again, if he wants to be taken seriously and to be embraced, he's got to show the people what he's saying is the will of God and all of that, doesn't he? Because people are going to dismiss it pretty quick. If their sons and daughters are expected to abide by the law and what have you, and his are out running loose, acting like they're just hadn't got good sense, is that going to fly very well with his constituency? And so he's got to try to model and whatever he says is God's law, and we're going to follow God's law. Well, he better follow it at his house, hadn't he? And that's his goal. He's not equivocating. He's not making excuses. He knows that a life with God can only be lived with integrity. And behind the righteousness that the public sees in its righteous leader is the godliness in his heart that is most visible in his personal associations. They'll learn some things about him. I knew about a situation where you had an official, young man, and they were trying to get, the powers that be were trying to get a read on his politics. And somebody said, this that knows, said, well, I'll tell you one thing you know, he's a Christian. Well, doesn't mean much out there in the outside world today, but if somebody said that about me or said that about my kin, that's high cotton. Mississippi, they got cotton that's about that tall, and high cotton is real good. It's easy to pick that on the top particularly. The writer, no, it's not easy to pick, but it's easier. The writer uses a verb that is a cognate of the noun blameless. And he uses it in an adjective form in verse 1. But more important than how he lives among society and friends is how he lives and he thinks in the secret confines of his soul before Jehovah. That's what really, really counts. And the blamelessness must be seen first in his personal life among the core group of those who serve with him. And only when this is true can he have a proper public life. You know, this psalm ought to be required, not only reading, but study of everybody that's going to run or going to hold a public office and be entrusted with the purse of the people and their safety and well-being. In verse 3, the psalmist further decides to disassociate himself from evil. He's just not, he's going to be perceptive, he's going to be discerning, and he's going to purposely not associate with that. He's going to disassociate from it. Godliness has both its positive and its negative components. It seeks virtues, but what does it do with vices? Shuns them. You know, you got to make a decision. Becoming very specific, he describes what a blameless heart will avoid. I will set no worthless thing before my eyes. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm not going to let it occupy my thought time and my thought world. He will not pursue it as a goal, and he will not imitate it as an ideal. He's going to do everything he knows how to do to banish that. And the word he uses here is made up of two words, not or without, and worth. It has no worth, has no value. It's often used for people that are dominated by evil and those who have come to the point of being without any value at all. You can do that to yourself, can't you? I mean, you got some guys out here that put themselves out at the Palunsky unit. And a lot of them have some value. But now there's some of them, there's a few of them out there that if they've got any redeeming qualities, I don't know where you'd find it. You know, hardcore. And a man he can make that of himself. As one seeks integrity, the writer vows that he will not allow any evil ambition or those who have permitted it and to capture their hearts to remain in his association. You know, he knows what he's trying to pursue. He's going to surround himself with people that embrace that. You can see the value of that, can't you? And not to compare our situation in the country with this man necessarily, but anybody that's elected to the highest office, the presidency, president is the only elected voice of the people. And so he needs to be a good man, but he needs to have some people around him who are good people and that embrace the ideals. He needs to be very honest about what it is he's going to try to do and why. And then he needs to put good people, I stress, around him to do that. And that's what this man's determined to do. He will not give them an opportunity to pull him from the blameless way. You know, the devil's going to send an agent to everybody that's got a shortcut, you know, some way to go around. You cannot master any subject of study without studying. It requires hard work. It requires determination. It requires repetition. You know, you got to repeat it enough times that it begins to stick. And every gimmick there is out there, you can try them all. But when it comes right down to it, remember what Dr. Lewis told us one time. Somebody asked him about, would he give us some advice on how to study? He said, sure. Go over to the library and apply the seat of your britches to the seat of a chair and go through it and through it and through it. You dig that material out. You do the work that's necessary. And you gather those facts and you go over those facts until you possess them. That's how you do it. That's all I know. Well, who's he? Well, he's a guy that had 2 earned PhDs, one in Hebrew, one in Greek. wrote extensively, wrote a 2-volume set on biblical archaeology. Now, I don't know how he became expert in that, but he was. And in other biblical subjects and topics. And he just was a man that devoted himself to the ministry of study and shared rich information for a lot of years. This king says he's not going to give them an opportunity to pull him off of what his goal is. And he also vows that he will not dwell in the presence of those who have fallen away from God. That they're not going to be his running buddies. Now, it's not that he wouldn't admonish them or seek to gain them back. But you know this. I mean, you got people that are disgruntled or that get disgruntled, and they can't find anything good to say about the Lord's church and the Lord's people. They're just not going to have anything good to say ever. Well, you can do what you want to do, but I'm going to do like this king did. I'm not going to spend very much time listening to that. I love the Lord's people. They've been good to me, not all of them, but most of them. There's a knothead in every group of people. I used to tell people, I won't say the name because she may still be alive, but there's one of them in every congregation. And you just have, that's just a gathering of people. But then there's always that good group of people that seeks to do the best they know how to do. And it will join with you in trying to make all of that happen. And so he said, I'm just not going to dwell in the presence of those that've turned their back on the Lord. I don't want to hear it. He detests or hates the lifestyle of those who have departed from God's fellowship. Well, for example, the name of that den of iniquity was the library. Now, you can imagine that the sights that you see or saw when you walked in there were not going to be very conducive to spiritual development, right? And so this king is going to do just like the DA down there did. He's not going to have that. He's not going to dwell in the presence of it. His people are not going to dwell in the presence of it because he has no respect for it. The righteous man removes himself from those who might lead him to become untrue to the Lord. So if somebody's trying to pull me or you away from the Lord, that's not your friend. I don't care if he's grinning like a donkey eating sawbriars and promising the world. He is not your friend. He's from the other side. And so he's going to see to it, this king's going to see to it that their evil designs and their faithless conduct is not going to take hold. He said, it shall not fasten its grip on me. That's his resolution. A strong word is used. It's the word that appears in Genesis 2 and verse 24 for a man cleaving to his wife in marriage. This is real. This is to be taken seriously. It's a sacred thing. Verse 4, if life puts him in the company of a perverse heart, he's going to remove himself from that fellowship. You just think if somebody's living that way in that kind of a kingdom, and they seek an audience with the king to make some proposal, they're not going to gain much success, are they? And if he maintains that in his administration, they're going to just kind of go somewhere else, which it'd be better off for everybody. If they're not going to straighten up, that'd be better. Yes, sir? Yeah. Absolutely it is. It's like George Vinoy's group. Anybody here that ever shook hands with Brother Vinoy has probably, had to go get their finger looked at if they had a ring on, because that guy had the strongest grip any man I ever met. I mean, he'd worked hard all his life, and he he had a grip. But sin will get a grip on you like that. It absolutely will. And it's hard for people to put it down. There was one of the guys out at the prison, and I sure hope he gained success. But he was just a good guy, and he was different. You know, you could tell when he came in. He was a Wood, meaning that he was not gang affiliated, but nobody messed with him. Yet he'd be there for worship every Sunday. Smile on his face, participating, and we got to be pretty good friends. And he told me, he said, you know, I never have hurt anybody, Brother Mitchell, but he said, I get on dope and get stupid. Just do something stupid, and I end up back in here. He was on his third pen trip. And they would finally got him to the point that and I've talked to you about him before, that they were going to put him in a program before he got out, pretty extensive drug rehab program. And I said, well, man, looked like they'd done that on the first. And he said, I wouldn't listen. You know, I had to go through enough of the knocks and bruises of life to get to the point that I would listen. Now I'm ready to listen. And, but he recognized, and he would talk about, you know, you get there and you get back into what you used to, and boy, there you are. Can't control yourself. You know, you got those chemicals running through your veins, and your mind is messed up. It's not the only way, but that, you know, people can get dwelling on hatred. They can get dwelling on a lot of things that are not right, and it'll just take them where they never dreamed that they would go. Well, he says he's just not going to the king. Says, I'm not going to have that. And he will be so intense in his desire for that which is good that those who have twisted, crooked minds, those who have stubborn, disobedient hearts, are going to find no joy and no encouragement whatsoever in his fellowship. And they will choose to leave him. And he's okay with that. They will not remain among his friends. They're not going to remain among his circle of associates. The disavowal of evil men is almost as important to him as accepting those who are upright and righteous. You know, you cannot put that together. Now, I know we all make mistakes. We all are in need of forgiveness. I understand that. But we're talking here about folks that are dedicated to that which is wrong. And this king recognizes, I cannot afford to play with that. I cannot let that grip my heart. And not for my own well-being, my family's well-being, but then, of course, as he goes, so goes his kingdom. As the leadership goes, so goes whatever association that you're talking about. Resolutely, he says, I will know no evil. And the word that's translated know has a broad meaning, and it includes awareness and experience, and even implies personal love. And intimate participation can be presented by this word, can be indicated, as may be illustrated by the marriage relationship. But the writer is saying he has no intention of entering into any close relationship with that which is wicked and contrary to the will of the Lord. In verse 5, he says the vicious tongue is going to be rejected. I tell you, I wish they would make me the school marm on Congress and the executive branch, and give me the power, because we'd stop some of this name calling. And a lot of that stuff is just dangerous. When one part of the other so vilifies the opposition, then you're going to have deranged people out there that are going to feel justified in resorting to violence. They have to know that. And so we as a people need to reject that kind of thing from anybody. And enforce the rule that we're here. This is a place where we come to debate different ideas, and we debate it, and we kick it around, and it might get vigorous. We won't have any problem with that. But we're not going to name call, and we're not going to threaten, and that's not permissible. It's not what we're going to allow. Because if I start name calling you, you're not going to receive that. I don't understand, not the smartest guy in Texas, but I don't understand how there be people out there that feel like they're justified in calling somebody they disagree with every ugly thing they can think of, and then turn around and think they're going to influence them for good. You know, they're going to give as good as they got, a lot of them. And so now here we go. And the people, don't receive what they need. So he has no intention of entertaining close relationships with wickedness. And the vicious tongue is going to be rejected. Slanderers destroy other people, destroy their name. He says, and a godly man can have nothing to do with them. Whoever secretly slanders his neighbor, he says, him I will destroy. Now, if that's David talking, you better take that serious. He was not the kind of guy that one wanted to trifle with. But he said, I'm not going to have it. Whoever secretly slanders his neighbor, him I will destroy. And so the person being named is the one who speaks against his neighbor or his friend in secret and behind his back. That's what they do. That's what they do. People, there's a way to handle things. And if somebody's got a problem, then they need to address it with the person they have the problem with in a civil tongue. And doing business and commerce. If you run into some kind of little problem and let's just say the bank makes a mistake. I've been banking a lot of years. I think a bank made a mistake on my stuff once in all those decades. But if you go in there hollering and screaming and accusing people of being crooks and all that, how much help can you expect to get? They're not going to help you. They may not tell you that, but they're not going to help you. I learned when I was working for the welfare department, if you wanted to see the boss, you better be nice to the receptionist. She may not have a job with as much prestige as your job, but she controls who talks to the boss. See, that's a powerful person in any organization. That's free. But if you're out there doing business and you want to get something done, be nice to the secretary. The boss's the person that he uses to filter stuff. Now, the vicious tongue, not going to have it. Malicious gossips should not be engaged, and they should not be tolerated by God's servant or his people. And this type of evil is especially harmful to the king's court. And you get all this intrigue and you can read from history. Oftentimes that kind of a slander campaign would lead to assassinations and that sort of thing. And that's not any way to run a kingdom, much less an airline. There's an old scholar, H.C. Leupold's, Old Testament scholar, defended the harsh language that the writer of the psalm, it's tough. He says it seems particularly severe in his attitude towards slanderers. And if it does, it must be remembered that they are character assassins. And that slanderers spoken about men in high places often led to the execution of those who were slandered. David, therefore, apparently threatens to do nothing worse than the persons in question themselves have been guilty of. But so you got to keep in mind, this guy's the chief law enforcement person in the kingdom. The slanderer should be, the slanderer should be destroyed, the psalmist says. King James translates that cut off, but the New American Standard has the better rendering with him I will destroy. He may not mean that he will, that the gossiper will be immediately handed over to a death sentence, but he is saying that he will speedily remove him from the court. Again, if you have a couple of removals like that, it sends a message, doesn't it? I remember one time, and this is not that kind of thing, but there was some young man at school, we were about 8th, 9th grade, who was inappropriate in his conduct toward a young lady. And she, of course, called foul on that. But Coach Tommy D. Steele took him out in the hall and put 10 licks on his backside with a board. And I guarantee you, that wasn't any kid in that school, any boy that ever thought about that year again, because there was the specter of Mr. Steele. You know, he was a good, solid church-going guy, and he didn't put up with that kind of stuff. You don't treat ladies that way, you know. We could do with a little bit more of that today. That it's just not tolerated. I don't know whether you need to put a board on them or whatever, but you want to make the point. That conduct is verboten. The arrogant spirit, according to the psalmist, should be equally despised and shunned. No one who has a haughty look and an arrogant heart will I endure. Two figures are given. Of the proud heart are given. And attention is drawn to the high or haughty eyes, that haughty look, a phrase that translated, it is translated a haughty look. I never shall forget, I don't remember now when it was, years ago, sitting on one of those little shuttle buses, and there was a lady with that look, and her two daughters that had it too. They'd caught it from their mama, and they were casting evil eye upon all the rest of the people on the bus. And I'm thinking, well, man, I know I took a bath, combed my hair, and everything. Just thinking, didn't say anything. What's wrong with that lady? But she was of that mindset, and you just see it coming a mile away. And David said, we're not going to put up with that. In addition, he pictured a wide or enlarged heart, which is rendered an arrogant heart. The one who makes known to his haughty look that he has or she has a pride-filled heart cannot remain with this king. He don't want him. He don't want him. Who was it that the singer talked about when the squirrel went to church? Sister Bertha better than you. And that's not always sister. It could be also Brother Bobby Lou or something, whatever. Better than you. Somebody that has that attitude is trying to hide something. You can write that down. There's something there that's badly amiss that they're trying to keep covered up, and that's the way they do it. The one who makes known through those haughty looks that he has that kind of a heart, not going to stay with David. The righteous will not endure his fellowship or be able to get along with this man. You remember what Paul said? As much as it lies in you, what? Live at peace with all men. But it's not possible with everybody. It's just not possible with everybody. And we have to recognize that, as much as we hate to admit it. Now, that's the negative. On the positive side, in verse 6, he says, my eyes shall be open to the faithful of the land, that they may dwell with me. And he who walks in a blameless way is the one who will minister to me. So he turns to the positives. The psalm puts its focus upon the faithful of the land. And he's not going. The writer will not encourage the development, not only encourage, I should say, the development of admirable traits in good people, but he's going to deliberately put himself among them so that his life will be improved by their influence. You know that there are certain people that you're around, you're not going to get any trouble. You're not going to have a problem because of who you're with, because they're not going to go where there's trouble. They're not going to, engage in things that's going to cause trouble. And those are the people you need to concentrate on. That's you encourage your children to make friends with people like that. The one who Based on my eyes, he said, are going to be on the faithful of the land, that they may dwell with me. And he who walks in the blameless way is the one that's going to minister to me. The writer will not encourage or develop those that are wicked, but he will give every bit of his attention to these. My eyes shall be upon the faithful of the land, and they may dwell with me. And while in verse 3 he said he would not set his eyes on anything base, now he says he's going to set his eyes on the faithful, or the trustworthy ones of Israel. Who will he, there again, a leader has to have advisors. He can't keep up with everything in something as complex as a nation state or even a big city. So he has to have advisors. He's well served if he gets the right people, the righteous people. Who will he encourage to imitate? He endorses the dependable people, those who walk in the truth. He also says, he who walks in a blameless way is the one who will minister to me. He honors the mature. He honors the blameless. He honors those who possess balanced character and basic loyalty, who cannot be legitimately accused of any great evil. These are the people who are full grown in their righteousness. And he invites the honorable man to be his minister or his assistant, to be part of his administration. He knows, as any king obviously should know, that he's going to be judged by and influenced by the cabinet that he puts around him, if they call it a cabinet, but that's what it was, same thing. The men who surround him are going to wield influence upon him. And so he's got to be responsible with his heart and with his cabinet. And that responsibility is going to require making righteous judgments. The last two verses, he who practices deceit shall not dwell within my house. He who speaks falsehood shall not maintain his position before me. Every morning I will destroy the wicked of the land, so as to cut off from the city of the Lord all those who do iniquity. So these last two verses concern the king's plans for dealing with the wicked. When he finds them guilty, what is he going to do with them as they're brought to his court? And he aspires to be a just judge. But there are going to be consequences. That we've come to a time where people can just commit felonious assaults and just unbelievable things, and nothing happens. And you have some horrible, horrific crime that finally pushes them to take some action. So, this guy had 9 felonies and 3 assaults and had warrants out on Porque. Why? Why would somebody like that be roaming the street? I don't care where he's from. He can be homegrown. It doesn't matter. And so the deceitful, treacherous, lying people are not going to be welcomed in this king's circle of life. He who practices deceit shall not dwell within my house. Deceit is a translation which depicts a person who has become slack with the truth, loose with the truth. He is a man who resorts to treachery and to fraud to achieve his goals. And if the king discovers such a person in his service, he's going to remove that person immediately. He's going to replace him with one who conducts himself with integrity. There's a couple of people that the current president has, and one of them's a middle-aged lady. But everybody knows her in the upper levels to be a person of integrity. I never heard of her before. But that's the way that kind of person generally is. They're just doing their job, doing what's right, and, trying to protect the administration from, evil within. And so deceitful, lying people not going to be welcome. And the second line is part of a synonymous parallelism. He who speaks falsehood shall not maintain his position before me. The one who speaks lies or falsehoods, it's just not going to be tolerated in this king's court. And reprehensible conduct of that kind deserves one thing, two things: disgrace and expulsion from its place of influence. And the king will pursue integrity, both negatively and positively. And if I don't stop, somebody's going to come pull on my coat. I saw a guy one time, he'd been a young man had been given an impossible subject. You couldn't have dealt with it, if he'd had all afternoon. And so he was given that, and he was circling the airport looking for a place to land. And so, anyway, a brother that has a high regard for himself came up there and tugged on his coat. That was embarrassing. What he had was good. What he was saying was good. But that happened. So I'm going to try to avoid that today. Thank you for being here.